Welcome to the FML podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Shameer Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML podcast. Today we're joined by Rory Woodbridge, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Pleo. Rory, thanks for jumping on the podcast today.
Hey Shameer, thanks for having me on.
Let's start at the beginning. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey so far and kind of how you ended up at Pleo?
I've been working in marketing for about 15 years, 10 years of those spent on product marketing. Started off my career in the world of startups and then found myself working for some pretty big tech companies. So I did a stint at Amazon working on their music products. And then I spent the bulk of my career in product marketing at Google and YouTube, also working on their music products. So I was one of the first people in Europe working on Google Play, which is now I think the world's biggest apps and games store. And as part of that, we launched Google Play Music and then YouTube Music a few years later. But having done that for a while, I then sort of found the itch to go back to startup world and went to a very small startup as their head of marketing, and then eventually ended up in SaaS. So first at a company called Whereby, who a Norwegian video conferencing platform, and so I joined them as their director of product marketing, but also their first marketing hire. And this was at the height of the pandemic, so you can kind of imagine it was blowing up. There was so much interest and so much growth, and kind of the company was having its wildest dreams realized. And so trying to get a grip on that and build out their marketing team from scratch, and while also trying to kind of execute on every kind of marketing strategy. And did that for a while, and then eventually found myself at Pleo, which is both a SaaS company and a fintech company. Specifically, it's a spend management platform that offers smart company cards, invoice management, expense and reimbursement management, and basically everything a finance team might need to manage its company spending. And so, I head up their product marketing team. I've been there for the last 18 months, and it's been a pretty fun time so far.
You've given us a quick overview of kind of sort of what Pleo do and who they are. Who are Pleo's primary audience? Who are your target audience?
Company-wise, I guess it's companies that find themselves spending a lot, like at the employee level. So, companies that do a lot of business travel, or maybe like entertain clients, or do a lot of project-based works, like consultancies are like a really good example, or like marketing agencies where they're kind of, you have, or even architecture firms, so anything where you might have a project and it's got expenses associated with it and you want to get a grip on that. But increasingly it's kind of any company that spends money on software or subscriptions. It's office supplies and everything. So size-wise, we're for big companies, we're for small companies, and we're now available like in a lot of European markets.
Kind of where I like to start really is almost that comparison between, I suppose, your sort of previous roles at Google, Amazon, YouTube versus Pleo really. What do you think are the noticeable differences in marketing a fintech versus, say, Amazon Music or YouTube Music?
There's a lot, and there's a surprising amount of similarities too. I guess kind of big difference wise, I think it's difficult making anything happen at a big company, just by the sheer nature of the size of the place, and kind of new ideas can be difficult to sell. People are a bit suspicious of them. Teams maybe sort of, aren't as like welcoming to new ideas as you might find at a startup or a scale up. And then you also just have sort of the bureaucracy maybe that comes with big companies. It's usually about like 10 layers of sign off, and then you get to launch day or the day before and you find out there's like a VP you didn't know existed and they haven't approved your project, and so everything gets scrapped, and it can be very frustrated, and you can kind of almost get used to being told no. And I think that's why you maybe see like limited innovation or dwindling innovation at kind of big companies, because eventually, if you're not structured or the culture doesn't incentivize that kind of like new ideas can come from anywhere. people get too nervous about taking risks and things plateau. So then what I found when I joined a company like Whereby, so when I joined them, they were going through a real growth period, but for the most part, we're sort of just north of 100 people. It was just that it was so valued when it came to people bringing new ideas, but also people that would show action. So I think in startups and scale up, the most impactful thing you can do is take action, and people really respond well to it. Just trying things out, seeing what sticks, and then scaling the things that work. And then you look at a company like Pleo, where I am now, and it's the best of both worlds in some way, and it's a bit more sizable. So there is this sort of expectation that maybe you have a bit more strategy in what you do, and there'll be a kind of requirement that you've put thought or data into your ideas and the projects you want to work on. But there's also such sort of an enthusiasm for new ideas and entrepreneurialism, because that's the nature of it. You're still in a very fast growth phase. You're still kind of you're on a mission to take over the world. And so people really welcome that, but with the right level of kind of scrutiny.
One of the biggest things or barriers that marketers see when marketing a fintech is that they feel that creativity can kind of be inhibited, because obviously there's things like, obviously compliance and regulations and similar sort of things that are in place that kind of beat away at that. Have you kind of come across that at Pleo, or has that not affected you in your role?
Yeah, of course. And so because I'm still fairly fresh in the fintech space, coming to terms with the fact that I work in fintech now, and don't get me wrong, I like it a lot. But it was maybe it was a sort of a mysterious space up until this point of being in it. I think maybe two things stand out. I think one is that like what you're talking about, like compliance, regulations, and also the infrastructure, how it works. So it's all quite complex stuff, isn't it? It's not super straightforward, and it gets even more complicated at the local level. And so Pleo operates in multiple markets, and there's all kinds of regulations and local requirements, to do with tax and as you say, compliance. And so communicating that in a way that's kind of easy for the consumer to understand, and not just that, making it interesting as well. Pleo really prides itself on its ability to do striking, bold, interesting marketing. So for me, it's finding that right level of detail at the right time to be talking about these different things. And there's that old phrase of if you're explaining, you're losing, basically. So you need to avoid that temptation in your kind of a lot of your marketing collateral to get into the weeds on the detail of explaining. You kind of want to instill that confidence in the consumer, provide that level of detail they might need on things like when they're evaluating you for things like compliance, but not get too into that too soon. So just sort of simplifying the complicated stands out as one challenge. And then the other thing I notice in fintech that is more prominent than other verticals is the idea of trust. And this is probably obvious to you and anyone who's listening who's been in fintech for a while, but money is such a sensitive thing. It's such an emotive thing. And that's at the consumer level or the B2B level, right? So, and especially with everything that's going on in the economy with both personal finances and corporate finances. So people want to have a really good relationship with the companies that they trust their money with. They want to really get the size of those companies. So communicating in a way that creates and fosters trust is incredibly important. And thankfully, the company I've joined, Pleo, is in this great position to do that. We're kind of one of the original players in our product category in Europe. And so we can speak to a real legacy in everything we've achieved so far. We've been doing a lot of this lately, kind of feeling very good about our payments infrastructure, the partners we work with, like JP Morgan and MasterCard, our security credentials. We have our in-house an in-house fraud prevention system, So and even basic stuff never forget the importance of things like customer support. Our support team is they're so good, and they're in-house and they live and breathe the product. And customers knowing that they can speak to someone quite easily about the product that's going to know it inside out and understand their problem. That all and us making that very clear that that's the case. I think that all helps with that feeling of trust, which I come back to the original point.
I want to, as I said, take a bit of a dive into, I suppose, Pleo's growth over the last couple of years. But before we do that, just kind of give us a quick overview of what is product marketing's role in the overall marketing ecosystem, marketing infrastructure, not just at Pleo, but company-wide?
Product marketing in tech, in the modern sense of what it is effectively a bridge between the product teams in a business, so product design, engineering, research, and the commercial parts of a business. So marketing, sales, customer success, just sort of being a communication bridge, but also making sure those strategies are aligned, and doing that by ultimately being one of the sort of the main representatives of the voice of the customer. But there's just a lot of kind of interlinking between the two, making sure that product work is being effectively communicated through all the distribution channels that a company might have, so sales and marketing and all the different offshoots of marketing, and vice versa, that kind of what we're doing from a marketing point of view and a brand point of view comes to life in the product. How that sort of plays out on a day-to-day, like the sort of things that product marketing owns at Pleo, we do a lot of things focused on insights. So we do competitive intelligence, we do all the win-loss analysis, we do a lot of kind of customer research. Who is the Pleo customer? What does the buyer journey look like? What are the personas of the people that buy and use Pleo? You then got kind of the creative part of our jobs, so messaging and positioning and sort of narrative and storytelling. Then there's the bit we're probably most famous for, which is like bringing products to market. So like go to market, like typically a tech company will have a large release slate for each year, and product marketing will drive the sort of how you communicate that and bring that to life, as well as post-launch adoption and adoption driving initiatives. And then finally, sales enablement is a massive part of what we do. So typically kind of any kind of enablement relating to the product is typically driven by product marketing.
I think it's a wonderful segue into my next question, really, is, Pleo's been massively successful with their customer acquisition, retention as well. I think you've got, is it just over 25,000 businesses using Pleo at the moment?
I think so. I think that's the latest number, yeah.
What do you think's been the kind of secret to success, for Pleo and its sort of rapid rise and growth?
There's the reputation for sure, because we were the original company in Europe doing this, and so we've got a sort of a real reputation of trust. And as a result, and if you're going to go for a spend management solution, it would make a lot of sense to go with Pleo, because we do stand out for that reason. There's the brand itself, that striking visual identity that Pleo has. That was a big reason personally I wanted to join the company. There's the people too. I think our customers really appreciate our people, and the fact like we get really good feedback about this, like our presence at events. Like I think we really stand out, and we just hire like really good human beings who aren't going for that bullish hard sell all the time. They're real people who are able to like form genuine connections with our customers. But I think ultimately, like the thing that does like stand out, and is like the primary reason, like you've seen that growth, and then you see that like retention, like you say, which is super important, is the product itself. And again, like this was another big reason for me why I joined Pleo. I was previously a customer. I was very familiar with the Pleo product. But yeah, when it comes to ease of use and like the quality of user experience, for anyone who spent even a short amount of time with that Pleo app, the Pleo product, people like simply just prefer using Pleo. Like if it's a choice, we find like for a lot of people, it's one of the few work apps I think that people actually like having on their phone, because it's so simple to use. In fact, it's so intuitive that you don't actually have to use it that much. And I think people appreciate that. But yeah, super simple. It just feels really nice to use. And so I think that's what creates, I guess, genuine love for a product. And then as a result, you get a lot of like growth just from like word of mouth and customer advocacy.
Taking it a step back, and almost like thinking about what seeded the growth in kind of the initial stages. So I was going to say, you've only been there 18 months. So you didn't do the go-to-market piece, did you?
I mean, I could talk about it a little bit. Like Pleo's got very good at certain marketing channels very quickly. But when you're a marketer, a lot of the time you find like you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have a great looking brand and aesthetic, then kind of it all falls apart. And so I think the fact that Pleo's brand, and they work with a great agency called Koto, like on this sort of very distinctive, like the color palette, the fonts are like really cool, like that they use like it's that kind of Scandinavian sort of chic look to it. But also, yeah, like we use a real sort of variety of illustration styles. We have a very striking photography style. And I think if you pair that with like a culture of experimentation in like your marketing mix, and like trying all these different slices of ads, and like we particularly like had a very powerful go to market on kind of the performance, the ad side. I think that's where you really start to see that magic happen.
On the performance side, I get hit by Pleo, on Instagram quite regularly. And the irony is that actually I don't really see them all that much on LinkedIn. And you would think for a B2B proposition, that would kind of be their go-to. Is there any learnings around that? Is there any sort of particular reason for that?
Well, I think we're trying stuff out all the time, but I'd say like for me, like the most kind of effective thing we do on LinkedIn is like, is again, it comes back to like the quality of our people. Like our Pleo employees have a lot of presence on LinkedIn and are really creative in kind of how they go about building their personal brands. And we have like some people that like have an incredible presence, like from our sales team in the local teams. They have an amazing presence on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is more community based almost, and I think it pays to be credible there, to be putting in original content, original thoughts, like starting conversations and making the most of, like, I guess, our organic content, because we do have a lot. We have a really rich blog. We put out ebooks and things and all the time, and our leadership team take part in lots of content and podcasts like this. And so I think that's kind of what we're doing in LinkedIn, and we see great success, especially like for me as someone heading up product marketing. I love seeing that part come to life, like when we do a new product launch and see the weight of like hundreds and hundreds of Pleoers getting behind something and doing their own twist on why they're excited about a feature or product.
Obviously, within your role, you spoke a lot about, you mentioned obviously, insights is a big part of it, being the voice of the customer. Has there been, sort of any surprising moments, when you've looked at those insights and you've had feedback come back to you, about features that perhaps you've already implemented and you think, wow, really didn't expect traction or as much traction with that, or, features that you perhaps hadn't thought of and you've had to relay back to the product team?
We try and make sure that product marketing insights find their way really early in the product development. I'd like to we're not just there kind of in that late go-to-market stage. We're there at the point of conception, or maybe sometimes even a product feature is conceived as a result of some product marketing insights. And one of the things I really recommend, if you're not doing this already, if you're a product marketer that works with sales teams, is introducing a win-loss analysis program where you quantitatively look at, like, okay, what are the reasons being tagged as losing deals according to sales teams, but also making sure you're interviewing customers that recently either became a customer or didn't, because they tend to be really frank, like especially if they're not talking to the person that they were in the sales process with. You can get so much gold from those, because it's sometimes really hard to know from like sales feedback around what features do we actually need to be building versus what's just like a kind of a recency bias. So I'd say, like partly like our release slate for this year is informed by those like, okay, where are our biggest gaps? I think, like, in terms of surprises, I mean, I'm not sure this is, like, maybe this is partly insights based, but I've been impressed by sort of the immediate take up of our what we call our multi-entity management offering. And the reason it's gone down incredibly well, and the take up's been like really fast from the off with our customers, both new and existing. I was surprised by that, because you hear the phrase multi-entity management and it doesn't sound too sexy. It sounds quite complicated, and not a lot of people would instantly know what we meant by that. But what we did was we took a real kind of storytelling approach, sort of the classic product marketing, I've talked about it a lot. If, like, you launch a narrative, you launch a story, you don't talk about the features or the name itself. Kind of led with that approach. we found immediately that customers got what we were talking about and have jumped on that part of the Pleo product. And what it is, it's this ability that allows you to manage all of your spending across, like, if you're a larger company that's got multiple entities, you've got multiple, like, kind of, you've got your UK entity and your Germany entity and so on. You can manage all the spending and expenses and get that nice visibility and control over all of that. And take-up's been great. And the competition have since rolled out like a similar offering, and they've gone with the same name, and they've kind of like adopted what we called it. And so I think that's some really good, effective product marketing work, I'd say.
Tell me more about narratives instead of features.
So I've got this is a good time to plug it. I run a Substack newsletter called The Product Marketer, and I talk about this quite a lot, and I've written specific posts about it. And it's, this idea of launch narratives, don't launch features. And the reason I talk about that is because in our world of like tech, fintech, SaaS, there are no moats when it comes to features. There are kind of no features that your competitors can't build. So the way you tell your story is the way that you differentiate. But also, it's such a kind of like typical misstep when you're launching a product to just talk about how it works, or talk about it in the terms of your own company and kind of here's why we launched it because some customers asked for it. And so when you're launching something new, create context, like introduce the problem for the customer, and try and tell the bigger picture about why this thing matters. And so that's what we try and do. And we also try and just sort of like, okay, what could be a fresh approach to this? Because there's a good chance somebody's already built a version of this product, but what's our unique, interesting perspective to this? So that's what we do, and I think we see great result from it. And like I think typically customers end up being a lot more engaged and enthused by we take this approach, and it also resonates a lot with our commercial teams who have to go actually tell that story each day, and I think it's a much more interesting sales conversation when you're sort of taking that approach as well, rather than it's a sales call and it's like, sure, let me take you through the 10 steps of how this new product works.
It's obviously a step beyond, they always say, sell benefits, not features. It feels like selling the narrative is obviously the step beyond that. What does that look like from a framework perspective? Are we talking user stories, case studies, leading with those sorts of things? Or are we talking about down all the way to the messaging that we're putting on the site, content across the website, on out-of-home activity, all of that sort of stuff? Or, is it a bit of everything?
Yeah, it's a really important question, because the reason I use the phrase narrative is also because it implies, like, you don't just have launch day and move on. Like, what you're doing with product marketing is you're shifting perceptions about something, about your company. You now do something that you didn't do before, or you want a customer to think slightly differently about you than they did before. And that's never going to happen overnight. So you're going to need to tell that story repeatedly in different ways over a long period of time. And it's through kind of every touch point that you can get your hands on that you think matters. And I guess like an example would be that Pleo is like famous for its smart company card offering and expense management for a number of reasons. But like a lot of it down to like customer demand. We have evolved into an all-in-one spend management offering. And a big part of that was us creating an invoice management product, very simply called Pleo Invoices. And so like a feature-led approach to launching that would be, hey, Pleo now has an invoice management product, and you can pay and schedule and approve all of your invoices within this product. And it isn't that great? And this is how it works. And there's 10 steps, and it's got these features, and it works with these integrations. But the better version of that is to sort of, this perception that you want to shift around. Pleo is now the place for all of your business spending. If you are spending money as a business, Pleo is the place for you, and you can do all of that. You can manage your reimbursements, your card spending, anything to do with like ATM withdrawals, and now invoices. But an even better or best version of that is to actually make it about the customer, talk about what's going on in the market. It's obviously right now, economically, it's difficult for a lot of businesses. Businesses are looking to obviously save time and money, and a lot of that means that they're looking to consolidate tooling and increasingly looking for kind of all-in-one solutions because of that. They want to spend time in high quality tools, but as fewer tools as possible. So they want to like work with products that are great at doing many things. And so that's a more interesting way to then introduce the solution of Pleo invoices, remind the customer of the problems they have, talk about the fact Pleo has a solution for that and can solve not just invoices, but a number of things. And then, yeah, sure, we can get into how it works, but that's that's maybe for later on in the journey.
I suppose my last question around this is when you're building these narratives, I think we're all sort of very familiar with, value propositions, and there's always some sort of, you come across brand steering wheels and brand triangles and all these matrices and all this sort of stuff. Do you have like a framework for building a narrative? Is there a one pager that you have or a process that you go through in order to extract that narrative?
We've been iterating on that with every launch, because I think what I found like is obviously you think you've done it all when you've like been in product marketing for 10 years, but like you've never done this job at this company at this point in this company's lifespan, and with a unique setup of product teams. I'm lucky to have a team of very accomplished like product marketers with huge amounts of experience, and we're all still like, what is the right approach for Pleo? And we take this approach like, it's a lot more driven by the heart than maybe a lot of companies do their product marketing. It's like we talk a lot about how do we want customers to feel from this narrative. So we don't have like a hard set framework right now for how you carve a narrative, but we do a lot of like collaboration and scrutiny. Go like, is this actually the story we want to tell? Is this something different? Are we talking about the outcome or the benefit? Are we offering something different and new to the conversation, or are we just sort of going over already sort of trodden ground? So it's a bit of a fluffy answer for you on that one.
Taking narratives over features into mind, I suppose taking that approach in a market where you've got high levels of competition and very, very similar products, I suppose what you're really doing at that point is, like you said, you're selling the story. Is that the approach that you take in a market that's got high levels of competition? Is narratives versus features the better way to go?
I think it 100% is, because when there's heavy competition, you can almost get kind of feature blindness, like so many features, so much feature parity. It's hard to see the wood for the trees, I think. If you do consistent storytelling over a longer period of time about what your company's about, for example. So for many months now, we've been sort of reminding customers of Pleo's like more serious credentials in our spend category. In fact, we've been here a lot longer. Our partners are very credible, and we talk a lot about safer spending. That stuff matters in the long term, and like if there's a feature missing, we can probably build it. But that kind of credibility, that in-house knowledge, and that kind of how well regarded we are in the space, that's obviously like going to really benefit us in the long term, especially when you think that it does take a while to tell these stories. And then I think it's like learning quickly about what features really resonate with your customers and doubling down on those. Because we're adding new improvements to Pleo all the time. And so, but sometimes you have to really pay attention to what are the ones that fly. And like, for example, last year, us turning on cashback went down so well with customers. And so that's become very a very popular part of the offering. And I think, again, that was another campaign we were really proud of, where we use cashback as the kind of very obvious like crown jewel in a wider story about it pays to use Pleo. Pleo saves you a ton of money every day in very straightforward ways, like cashback, but also in hours saved just by sheer kind of, for every time you're using Pleo, you're not spending hours and hours chasing your employees for receipts or spending hours in spreadsheets trying to manually process things. So yeah, I think longer term narrative bets are way more important than just sort of this another week, another feature, here's what it does.
I think you see that a lot with sort of early stage companies, that it's very, very feature led. They take the view that they need features in order to acquire market share. And although I think that's true, I sometimes think, actually just having a really solid proposition, having really good branding and a solid message can, and a focus on perhaps a particular sector, for example, is sometimes all you need just to get that critical mass of users that allows you to kind of get to that next stage, right?
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise, you end up just having a long list of, you get those like SaaS pricing tables, all the long lists of all of the features that you do have, and you end up going down the path of being another choice for your prospective user.
Totally.
You mentioned obviously having a really solid product marketing team. I just want to spend a few minutes on what does the ideal product marketing team look like? What are the bodies and job functions you need within a solid product marketing team, and what are you looking for as an individual, within your team members?
So I think like product marketing is when it's at its best, when it sits at the heart of a business, and it's working on like the problems that are central to the business itself, not purely marketing or purely product or purely sales. And so when I'm like setting up a product marketing team, I try and have that structure reflect that of the business, like priority wise, and try and have it kind of mirror somewhat the shape of product and the shape of marketing. How we've done it at Pleo is we've hired in quite a T-shaped way, where everyone is a very good all-rounder, but tends to specialize in something. So we have someone who specializes in competitive intelligence. We have someone who's really focused on sales enablement, but they're all able to kind of take on any of the work that you might need from a product marketer. We built out the team pretty much from scratch when I joined, and that in itself, it was quite a challenge because you're trying to insert a brand new function that not many people know about or understand into a large growing business. And so that itself, trying to educate on that was tough. What was really important for me was that they be real product marketers. There's a lot of people out there that like have product marketing in their title, and you quickly get into chatting and you're like, oh, that's not really product marketing in the modern sense. I was looking for a group of people that could really articulate it well, because I knew that was going to be part of the job, that we were going to have to go out and do a lot of education about ourselves and what we were going to be doing at Pleo. I think beyond that, I look for people that can communicate the impact they've had in previous roles or in their current role, people that are clearly going to thrive from collaboration, because lots of the time that is the job. You're in constant communication and collaboration with other teams, kind of just moving things forward. So somebody that gets a kick out of that. And I think, I guess people that can like balance the creative with the strategic and can tell a compelling story out of difficult, complicated things.
We've covered an awful lot today. I think my only sort of last question really is, what does the next sort of 12 to 18 months look like for Pleo? What's in the master plan?
Well, for me, and I still feel, even though I've been here 18 months, I feel like relatively new here. Right? But I personally think Pleo is one of the great European fintech success stories. So I think ultimately we want to keep on earning that reputation and continuing on what's been a pretty extraordinary journey so far. I think we're leading the way for a lot of European fintech businesses. So, and I'm proud to be part of that. And so we'll continue to innovate. We'll continue to put the customer and customer obsession at the heart of what we do, for sure. From at the more day-to-day level, for me, what I'm thinking about, we've got some big product pieces that we're going to be rolling out this year that I'm very excited about. I want us to get even better at making noise with our launches. I want us to get world-class with our marketing and our product marketing and how we bring products to market. And I hope that we also continue to stand out in our space. So both the spend management category and the wider, I guess, the fintech space, doing marketing that you wouldn't expect from a B2B fintech company.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed our conversation today. Before I let you go, I'll quickly finish off on our quick fire round. What podcasts are you listening to right now?
I feel bad because I haven't been listening to a marketing or business one lately, so I don't know how relevant this is going to be. But I think it's important to keep on learning in all different ways. And so I've been listening to a podcast called The Rest Is History most recently, which I really have to recommend. They do different kind of parts of history each week. So this week I've been learning about the end of the Vietnam War. I think continuing to learn things about the past, learn things about the world. I guess good ideas and good inspiration come from anywhere. But I recommend that one. But aside from that, I guess most recently on the marketing side, I've been going down a bit of a rabbit hole of content on HubSpot, because I'm just really kind of engrossing that story. I think they're such an impressive company in what they've built over the past few years. There's some really good Sachdev interviews with their founder Brian that I definitely recommend.
Other than Pleo, what's your favorite fintech product or app?
I don't know if you saw the Wise rebrand lately. I think they did a fantastic job. So I've been pretty obsessed with that lately. Just kind of it's beautiful work. And then there's a really nice sort of twist and background to what they've done. But I think they've done just such a thorough job from a brand and marketing point of view and product design. I've been thinking about that a lot, and that informing kind of my state of mind right now. And then, well, before we were talking about them, like a product I was really impressed by the user flow, and like what a great kind of like product led journey it was. Actually, Yonder, the credit card product, I think that's such a great example of a modern, slick sign up experience. I was really impressed by that recently.
What's the best bit of life advice you've ever received?
The one that stands out, I think does ring true, because I think it's like works across personal and professional, is you get what you put in. I know that's really simple. I do think it pays off. Like you get what you put in life, both in a work setting and with relationships and friendships. If we're talking about the work side, I think come to work with a great attitude, invest your energy, show people you care and do care, and people will meet you there.
Amazing. And what's perhaps one thing that I haven't asked that perhaps I should have?
I mean, I could probably do a whole like podcast with you about like mistakes I've made and like marketing fails and disasters that have happened on the job. So yeah, I think I've dodged some questions and only talked about the things that things have gone well.
Do you want to give us a quick highlight of a blunder? Not something that obviously paints you in a bad light, something that we can look back on and laugh in retrospect.
Anyone who's worked on email marketing knows that the stress that comes from email marketing, because it's one of the only ones that you can't undo. Like a website page you can fix, an event you can work it out on the fly. But I remember some email clangers, where we've sent the same email 6 times to thousands of users. It still brings a lot of PTSD over the years working with email. So a lot of love to anyone, any CRM managers out there.
I was going to say that anyone who's run a department or CRM managers has undoubtedly done that. My advice there is, remember one thing with marketing: nobody dies. Yeah. Just remember that, and it'll make you feel better.
So true.
Cool. Rory, thank you very much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks so much, Shameer.
The FML podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk and make sure to search for the FML podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.